Story 1. I used to shut down completely because when I tried to express my viewpoint, it was diminished. Now I do argue back. Forget being a doormat. Story 2. I do not argue. I ask questions. If she yells at me, then I will ignore her. She eventually gets the hint, feels bad, apologizes, and then tries to make it up to me. Story 3. At first, I would argue back because I already knew what she was going to say, and I knew that it was not going to go well. Once I realized that she told me it did not matter how I felt or what I thought, that I needed to deal with it, I just quit talking. Especially when she would start these arguments and then flip them around on me at the last minute to be the victim. I am now single after a 27-year marriage, and I have never been better. Story 4. It seems that whatever I do is the wrong decision. If I fight back, it is the wrong decision. If I sit there and shut down, it is the wrong decision. Story 5. I walk away. I refuse to engage. We will discuss this later like adults or you are done. What is actually going through your head in that moment? What an impossibly vague question to ask. Story 6. At the end of my marriage, I would entirely shut down. Like a dollar store mannequin, eyes forward, barely even breathing. Nothing I could say or do would make anything better in those moments, and it was best to just let it all happen. Story 7. If I cannot win, I will not play. I was married for 20 miserable years to a woman who wanted to win fights more than find solutions. In the first few years, I thought we were trying to find mutually beneficial solutions, or that sometimes I would give and sometimes she would. Her father said during our wedding, "Do not keep score," and I did not. But you do not need to keep score when you never win to know it is one-sided. What was going through my head the last 15 years or so? As soon as the children graduate, my life can begin again. Story 8. I know many people who just say sorry because the emotional load, mental toil, and psychological gymnastics wear them out. These people are often considered the troublemakers in the relationship, the emotionally delinquent, poor relationship skills person who is always working on improving. Their partner is always right. There is no escaping that trap. Arguing people is important. Story 9. I grew up solely on a diet of lead-based paint chips and was frequently dropped on my head, so I argue back. Story 10. I am a very argumentative person, so I was kind of a bully when I would argue with my fiancée. I still argue, but I have gotten a lot better about it because she is a much softer person than I am. At the end of the day, it is not me versus her. It is us versus the problem. Story 11. I kind of shut down because I am trying really hard not to lose my temper, raise my voice, or say things I don't really mean. My wife and I recently had a small argument. She asked me why I was looking spaced out and speaking in a somewhat distant tone. I said it was for the same reason she wasn't telling me not to raise my voice at her. Then I told her I was really trying to control myself and resolve our conflict. I am very solution-oriented, so I do everything in my power to avoid creating more problems and to resolve existing ones. When the problem is me, I naturally get defensive, which can create some conflict. This happened because she came into the living room while I was playing games online with my best friend. We are busy adults and he lives out of state. I don't get much gaming time, let alone gaming time with my friend. She initially came in to ask if some salmon still smelled good, but then said she wished I would clean up a little before gaming. I acted a little erratically because I was on the phone with my best friend, playing duos in Fortnite. I paused the game, pressed start unintentionally, put the phone on mute, and then asked her if she wanted me to do anything right then. She was really off-put by my behavior and repeatedly asked if I was okay because she noticed something odd about my erratic movements. I tried to explain. 1. I am gaming with my best friend since kindergarten. Our time together is really important, but my wife is also my priority. It involved a lot of fast movements and decisions to literally ghost my friend on the phone to give my full attention to her. Sorry, that was weird to see. I was just trying to prioritize two very important people in my life, which is hard. I told her before that I don't like it when she comes into the room and immediately complains to me. It feels like she is engaging with me solely to complain. If she has a real complaint, I asked her to take a moment to compose herself so she can express it calmly. That way, it won't make me defensive or trigger another argument. She got mad because I was frustrated and asked, "Why does it matter that I acted weird?" I know I did and acknowledged it. I did and acknowledged it too. I apologized. "Why does it matter?" I said, "It matters to you because you want to understand. So calm down. Listen to me. Do not interrupt. And do not make faces at me while I try to explain my irrational defensive behavior." After some time, she understood. I asked her what a good response to her complaint would be. I told her it might have been better if she had asked me about the salmon first. The reason she came into the living room to talk to me, before complaining about me not cleaning. We were arguing or heatedly talking for about 15 minutes while she held a pack of salmon. I asked her to put the salmon down and sit to talk, but she said no. I didn't like the dynamic of her being upset while standing over me as I sat on the couch. We worked it out. Story 12. I remember it is us against the problem, not us against each other. We talk it out and apologize when necessary. We have raised our voices maybe 2 or 3 times in 10 years. Conflict resolution and managing one's emotions is something everyone should learn before adulthood. Before my wife, I had several unsuccessful relationships. One partner preferred yelling, the other preferred stonewalling. Both seemed suboptimal for my mental health. If emotional intelligence is not there, I am out. You should never want to win an argument with your partner. Nor should you engage in emotional violence by shutting down and making them suffer. You should align on the big things and act like a team. We often learn these life skills from our parents and previous partners. Sometimes our actions reflect our insecurities. It is never too late to learn and be better, or to work on yourself. Story 13. I look for a resolution. If it is going nowhere, I shut down to give things some time to cool down. I am not going to argue if it is emotion-driven. Story 14. I do not argue, not because I shut down, but because my wife and I see eye to eye on most things. If there is an actual issue that needs to be addressed, we discuss it like adults and come to a mutual agreement or, at minimum, a compromise that satisfies us both to some degree. Story 15. What is going through my head is this is not about being right. It is about reaching agreement. There is nothing wrong with an argument provided it does not get nasty and you reach agreement. Arguing about the same old issues without reaching agreement is corrosive. I try to stay calm and logical. However, sometimes this makes things worse. Story 16. I shut down and I do not want to do this. It is going through my head. If I am yelled at, that is different. I will generally ask her to please stop yelling. If the yelling does not stop, then I match that energy, and it is go time. Story 17. 20+ years in a good marriage. She is not mad at me. She just needs to vent about something else through me. Then I go to the garage. Story 18. Married for over 30 years. I hate arguing and usually shut down. We have been together long enough to know there is no point in arguing. If I push back hard enough on my point, she will cry. So I win. But who cares? I don't need to win. I don't want to make my wife cry. So I stay quiet. Yet sometimes she encourages me to speak up and argue back. I don't want to. I warn her that if this continues in the direction I expect, she will cry. I let her speak. I listen. I acknowledge. Then I stay quiet. It is much easier that way. Story 19. Openly communicate. Everyone is different and everything needs to be on the table. Sure, everyone talks negatively now and then, but people need to vent. Communication is key. Without it, things are kept inside and fester. Story 20. It depends. The answer I've learned is never to argue back because it's pointless and unproductive. However, it is situational whether or not I will give pushback. Is the argument based on a solution that we both can work to find? I will state my case and work toward a solution. Is she just upset with me because she disagrees with something I did or said? I will shut down if that is what you want to call it. I prefer to call it resigning. Like, okay, you got it. I am not going to argue back or give any explanation because you clearly do not want a resolution. You want to yell at me. There is no resolution with a woman who is upset and making claims about me or to me that I disagree with. She can have it because I am not going to stress myself out because she is upset. Story 21. I don't shut down, but I let her talk no matter how long it takes. I just agree with her whether she is right or wrong because in the end, I really just do not care. Story 22. Every time you argue back, you lose. Women often turn arguments into competitions to win rather than expressing their feelings or points of view constructively to resolve an issue. Meanwhile, men tend to get stuck in those arguments, feeling like they can't walk away or that they are trapped against the wall. This leads to increased frustration and upset as they try to reason or defend their point, growing resentments like a pot boiling over. Most men get trapped in arguments and drawn into altercations with no end in sight because many avoid conflicts. They are coaxed into arguing the same way, which builds more resentments, frustrations, and wounds until problems inevitably explode into further issues like domestic violence, emotional and physical abuse, and worse. This applies to both men and women. "You make me feel bad" can become a weapon to shift blame and avoid accountability, instead of saying, "To be honest, I'm just not happy anymore about this. I don't feel good anymore." This is constructive, honest, accountable, and opens a discussion for future resolutions and compromises. When you experience the first scenario, walk away. Simply leave. Do not entertain, tolerate, argue, or stay to defend your point once accusations and insults start. Walk away for your well-being, sanity, and safety. When you experience the second example, have a sit-down conversation to reasonably talk and resolve issues like adults. Respect each other and, if you still love each other, understand that an issue is not a roadblock but a stepping stone to better fulfillment and an opportunity to strengthen the relationship and bond. Story 23. Honestly, since most arguments are petty, I don't engage. Reading some relationship subreddits, I think I have to start tolerating petty arguments and engaging because it is likely tangentially important to her. She may be angry over some seemingly minor issue, but the real issue may be that she doesn't feel I am tuned in or working on the relationship. That is her, hopefully subconscious, and not deliberate way to test me or notify me that she feels distance is being created. It is difficult. I grew up in a volatile, abusive household. I sit and talk through big things, but I have to find a way to make space for her issues, big or small. The volatility of many women, I immediately attribute to abuse due to my past. I know if I respond with similar energy, they would probably leave or have multiple talks about expressing myself in a healthier, less scary way. The double standard disrupts me. Story 24. Depends on whether it is a civil kind of argument. If you are going to scream at me and talk over me after you have made your point, even if you are right, then I am just not going to say anything. Whatever the case, do not yell. That is not how you talk to someone. Story 25. We do not really argue, at least not in the way I understand arguing. We talk about disagreements, but she and I are both pretty easygoing. Story 26. I am focused on recognizing what I want to do versus what I need to do. I am learning how to maintain being an active listener while simultaneously translating my feelings into non-escalating, non-attacking language. I am also advocating for myself without being defensive and being prepared to conclude the conversation temporarily in case either of us devolves into destructive, violent, attacking, or abusive communication. Story 27. Depends on the fight. Last night, I snapped at my wife about something parenting related. She had to go put our oldest to bed upstairs. When she came back down, I apologized. I still had a reason to be mad, but being a bit older, sometimes little things just aren't worth the way fights make you both feel. Story 28. I have a bad picker. I choose women subconsciously who are like my mother, and she was not a good person. I always end up with that red-haired Irish kind of girl. They always want to keep escalating. Some women want to escalate things until you blow up. Then you feel really awful about yourself, and that is a win for them. Beware of these women. There are more of them out there than you think. As a matter of course, I usually shut down. I do not want to win a fight. I just do not want to fight. Things will be different tomorrow. An emotional altercation does not seem beneficial to me. Story 29. Before it becomes an argument, I will take a moment to ground myself and remind her to do the same. If she is caught up in emotion, then we can talk like adults and work on the challenge together. Story 30. Do I shut down or argue back? I found safety in shutting down, and it has been a real hard battle to listen carefully while feeling safe to talk about my understanding of the situation. What is going through my head in that moment? For the longest time, it was simply, what do I need to say to get away from this situation to a place of safety? Now I ask, how can I hear the reasons behind the emotional reaction? How can I recognize the person behind the emotion? Only after she acknowledges being heard and understood do I start sharing my thought process and emotional experience of the situation. Story 31. I have a conversation. My main goal is always conflict resolution, which does not require arguing. If you are arguing, then you have already lost. That said, if someone is incredibly hostile, I just walk away and refuse to engage until they have cooled off. Story 32. The loop around method means we both get a chance to say what we feel we need to in the heat of the moment. Then one of us goes for a drive or does something else, and we talk it out afterward. At least that is what I did with my ex, and it worked. Story 33. Oh, shut down. Most of the women in my life, sibling, mother, grandmother to a lesser extent, only start arguments when they have already made whatever conclusion they want. Then it does not matter what you say or why. Their minds are made up and you have already lost. Story 34. What goes through my head is, this is not normal. This is so stressful. Is she actually believing what she says? Or am I the crazy one? No, she is crazy. Just agree and move out when you can afford it, so she does not do something insane right now. Something like that. This is the first relationship to be this way, but I am in too deep. Story 35. I used to shut down and get criticized because my wife is the opposite. At that point, there was nothing going on in my head. Literally nothing. For this reason, we did couples counseling, and now I speak up more. This does not happen often. It's not that we fight that much. My wife was really upset with me for not saying anything, but there was nothing going on in my mind, so nothing came out of my mouth. Story 36. Neither. I try to solve the issue and get to the core of the argument. If the fault is with me, I try to see it and acknowledge it. I mean, it did not used to be like this, but I am 37 and have had years of therapy. Story 37. I don't really do heated arguments. If we are getting angry, I disengage if my partner does not do it first so we can both calm down before talking things out properly. When I say disengage, I do not mean silent treatment or other passive-aggressive behavior, just politely excusing myself to go somewhere else and cool off. Story 38. I never shout. I just talk to them. I remember this is a person I love, and I do not want to hurt them. It is really easy to get caught up in anger, but sometimes just taking a deep breath and repeating that phrase stops me from saying something I do not mean and will regret saying to them. So, I just try to make my point using logic where logic should be, and emotion where emotions are felt. Story 39. There is another option. Listen to what she says and show her you are listening. You do not need to agree. Just let her know that you understand what she is saying. Start there. Then try to find the parts you can agree with. Repeat that back. If there are facts you disagree with, ask if you can share your side. Sometimes there is a perpetual conflict that will always come up. One example might be money. One partner wants to spend, celebrate, and enjoy life. The other person wants to be frugal and invest. Neither is going to change the other's mind. I was in the middle of the money battle. I was the one who wanted to save. My girlfriend explained to me that her dad had millions and suddenly left the family. That left her mom and siblings very poor, making it on their own. Meanwhile, they saw their dad with lots of money but not covering basics. When I knew the story behind her desire to have nice things, we were on a trip and needed a rental car. I wanted the cheap little box. She wanted a more comfortable car. The difference was about $120 for a week, and I would only pay half of that. The rest of our trip was pretty low cost, staying with friends and family. I knew how much it meant to her, and I agreed because I knew the story. I also knew that she agreed to stay for free with family instead of the luxury hotel room. We both made a compromise because we both listened. Story 40. The only way to do it is to stay laser focused on the topic. Put pins inside arguments. Use I statements, such as, when you did this, I felt this. The only way to communicate effectively with the one you love. Story 41. Shut down is a good way to put it. I love my wife. I want her to be happy. When she does something wrong or inappropriate, if I point it out, suddenly she is upset and, in her mind, I am the bully picking on her. It does not matter what it is or how wrong she is. If I point it out, it is my fault and suddenly she is angry. Story 42. I don't argue. My wife and I recognize a problem, then we talk about it like adults. Arguing can cause people to forget their points, and solving the problem can be lost. I control myself and talk to my wife. She controls herself and talks to me. We ask questions, find out what is going on and what the other needs. We work on it. Handling things like that has brought us to a point in our relationship where problems are no longer problems. There is no issue talking about things. We don't shut down when we talk because we are comfortable voicing our opinions. We don't argue because we are past that. We both feel heard and understood, and it makes things almost seamless. Story 43. I argue my point. If things escalate to either of us raising our voices, I stop, tell her we need some time to calm down, and then I go for a walk or do something else. Before I leave, I tell her when I will be back so she does not feel abandoned or like I am avoiding the conflict. When I return, we talk things through and usually share a treat I got for us, like ice cream. Story 44. I used to shut down instinctively as an inexperienced teenager. Then, due to the nature of my work, I started arguing back. I solve business disputes and I am very good at it. That had worse results in my relationships. I found out that women can be like children. They do not always make sense, follow logic, or act reasonably. They might lie, deny, gaslight themselves, cry, fake cry, say Timmy made me do it, get physically and verbally abusive, exaggerate, or throw fits. Pretty much anything but accept they are wrong and at fault, similar to a 7-year-old. So now I just shut down to spare their feelings. Women tend to have more fragile egos and are often less mature. This approach is better for everyone. Story 45. I do not argue. I listen to understand her perspective and respond in a way that determines the most favorable direction for our team. Story 46. There are some things I don't care to argue about with my wife. Not that I don't care, but it's probably something that I know doesn't affect my life that much. I will always argue my principles, though. I have called my wife out on double standards. Things she did that I wasn't allowed to do. Those are absolutely things I won't back down on. I'm not shouting, but I will respond to everything. Story 47. Active listening is the key. It turns any fight into an effective, level-headed discussion, especially when both partners participate. Story 48. We both walk away until we are calm enough to discuss and work together for a solution. Arguing is childish and shows a lack of emotional control. Story 49. How do we sit on the same side of the table, facing the same direction, and find a solution instead of sitting opposite each other and arguing? Story 50. My wife and I rarely argue. We made a promise to each other that we would never go to bed angry and would talk through our issues instead of letting them build up. Even the very best of friends experience conflict and arguments, but staying level-headed, listening, and acknowledging your partner are really important to a healthy relationship. Story 51. We do not argue. Arguing for the sake of winning is a waste of time and energy. Point scoring just reeks of immaturity. We have heated discussions about important decisions and problems, but it is me and her versus the problem, not me versus her. Story 52. I've never had a girl scream at me or anything crazy, but the disagreements and rocky parts one have had in my short-lived time in a relationship usually go like this. I get super focused. I listen and I empathize. I pick my words very carefully and slowly, often speaking in a refined and detailed manner, but still affectionate. I am honest in what I say. However, any potentially offensive thing might be worded in a less offensive manner. The end goal is to diffuse the situation. Also, I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so normally I'm completely out of focus. I can't listen and talk way too much, and I have a hard time empathizing. I never think before I speak, and what I say often comes across very poorly. So yeah, it's not normally how I act. I'm still honest, though perhaps too honest or blunt. I've never been yelled at or insulted by a partner. I feel like I would end things if that happened, but I don't think my response would be the same if someone else did it. Because again, with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, I'm very impulsive. If someone insults me, my immediate response is to say, fuck you. A brutish response of verbal combat, I'll admit, but I can't think of anything else in those situations. Still, I feel like I'd be too dumbfounded if a partner ever did that. Story 53. I am open and willing to talk, but when I get berated or my fiancé does not listen to anything I am saying, I will shut down. Story 54. Do not shut down. That can cause further relationship problems in the future. I have become skilled at asking questions when my spouse is confrontational, and this has solved many problems for me. For example, we have done many renovations on our house recently. She is very particular and can become a little bossy when I am doing something, and she thinks I am not doing it the right way. I usually respond like this: I understand what you think is wrong. Can you tell me what you would prefer me to do? Many times, she cannot clearly explain what she means, or I cannot understand because I have experience in construction and carpentry, and she does not. If there is an obvious problem, I usually point it out and move on. If she is not convinced, I ask her to show me what she means, either herself or through a video. One time I did this and she made a mistake with the flooring we were installing. I expected there would be an issue with her approach, but she was determined. After she saw what was wrong when she did it herself, she trusted my way more. Confrontations are inevitable in a relationship. That is why I suggest developing a process to handle them. It has prevented me from saying hurtful things, and I am a better person because of it. Story 55. I don't shut down. I just try to listen and think about the true cause of the disagreement and address that. Usually, the argument has a deep-rooted cause elsewhere, not what you are fighting about. My partner says I am the calm, thoughtful, patient one in the relationship. She does not go off the handle, but sometimes we all need to vent. Story 56. Usually I just accept blame and take responsibility. It is easier to just take the fall and move on. I know it is not healthy, and I know it is not mature. I am not pretending that it is, just being honest. I just chose peace over being right. I put peace in quotation marks because it is only momentary peace. It sits with you and eats away at you until you slowly check out of the relationship or explode on them. Story 57. I refuse to argue. If you cannot act like an adult and have a conversation, then I will not listen. Honestly, if someone cannot keep their emotions in check and be rational, I would not be with them in the first place. Life is too short to put up with that behavior anymore, and I would rather be alone. Story 58. 20 years married. If I am right and I am being accused, I fight back. If it is minor, I say sorry, love you, you are right. Petty issues, let them go. Whatever you do, do not let women or men tread on you and make you feel less, especially when you are doing everything right. Story 59. There's an initial urge to argue, but you soon realize that shutting down is probably best. And if she is wrong about something, she will find out anyway. In my experience, most women are not interested in hearing the logic of an argument and will hold onto an emotional feeling attached to their position. I have had this happen with relatives and partners. The few women that I have seen actually engage on a logical level, even if they had a contradictory opinion, I have found immensely attractive, but usually they are already paired up. Story 60. My partner and I do not argue. We talk things out like adults. My ex-wife and I argued because she was a terrible communicator and was easily offended by her interpretation of words said despite intentions. There was a list of words that would set her off regardless of context. What a difficult way to live. Story 61. I listen to what she is repeating and try to understand the root issue causing friction in the relationship. I just want to find a solution so we can have calm again. Story 62. If I have a point to make, I try to make it. If she is not interested in resolving it, I shut down and put my attention elsewhere. I do not humor someone while they insist on making themselves an enemy. Story 63. We both try not to get loud or say mean things when we disagree, but it does happen occasionally, especially when we are tired and cranky. Sometimes, it happens because we have let sources of irritation build up without a calm discussion. We tend to argue about the same topics repeatedly, so we have learned it is better to discuss them calmly as they arise, instead of lashing out when we have had too much. Story 64. I don't like arguing. I would much rather go off, cool down, and then come back to have an actual discussion. Arguing is just a pointless fight that will inevitably lead to saying things you do not mean in an effort to win. Story 65. If I know I am in the wrong, I shut down and listen. If I feel I am not in the wrong, I try to defend myself. Story 66. I try to walk away. When you cannot run away from this encounter, it is time to lie, browbeat, and act insane. I learned from the best. Story 67. Better not to argue. I like to win, but at what cost? I do not curse at her, and that is important to me. Story 68. I would not say I do either. Both lead to animosity, and I do not want that in a relationship. We communicate together and find a resolution. I think any argument, disagreement, or dispute should be handled as her and me against the problem, never her versus me in any way. Story 69. Partnerless, but I have a habit of matching tones to people, something about how my brain works. If they don't know, they think my yelling back when I respond is annoying. Story 70. Neither of us shouts. We both give each other a chance to speak, and we always reach a resolution before we go to sleep at night. We have been together for over 3 years and have never shouted at each other over anything. Story 71. Well, I did not expect the comments. Some of you seem to refer to keeping the peace, but half the time it is just enabling bad behavior, yours or your partner's. Every time there was an argument in the making, I stayed calm and stood my ground. I am not backing down just so someone can feel they are right when they are actively hurting the relationship by fighting for nothing, especially when they are objectively in the wrong. I can admit when I am wrong, and I can almost always put myself in others' shoes, so it is not like I am just talking nonsense. In fact, I beat myself up over trivial things, so if anything, my bad behavior is not giving myself enough credit. The point is, if I let a partner win an argument where they are completely wrong, I am just enabling their bad behavior. If I do that, it becomes a habit. If it becomes a habit, my life will turn into hell because habitual fights are meaningless. And when I say not let her win, it does not mean I win. It just means I am calling out nonsense that has no reason being thrown around. That also means nobody wins because that is not the point anyway. The goal should be stopping the argument, but putting my head in the sand is not a real solution. So no, I hold my ground when she is absolutely wrong, but I am not a jerk about it. I ask questions, stay calm, and reply with common sense. I want to understand her side first. If she only wants to be right and get off on that, then she is not for me. Story 72. Yeah, so long story short, I go on a walk. Sometimes I just think about if I walked out the door and started walking up a bunch of invisible stairs. I'd look back at my partner and say, "See you later," and walk off into the sky. Truth is, ever since I left my ex, I've been on that staircase looking down at her. I've gotten back into trains again and got back into reading. Running has been helping out, but I don't see how guys can be with someone who weaponizes their emotions. This is a case-by-case situation, of course. But yeah, I think I'm probably going to walk out on my next partner if I can't express how I feel without repercussions. That staircase is always there. Guys should really band together and live a life of solidarity without worry or stress. We have problems on a different spectrum that most of us don't understand. I think once we become closer as men, our spirits would definitely intertwine, building a stronger foundation for each other and ourselves. We're the only type of population that's efficient on our own but incapable of being a support for each other. And if we were brothers, understanding that we don't understand, we'd accept each other, growing as men and as better partners and friends. Story 73. That will depend on whether the topic is even worth arguing about to me. I am not getting into a fight about something that I do not care about, and I am not obligated to care about everything that someone thinks is important. Story 74. Never shut down. That is a sure way to lose respect from your partner. I stand my ground and remain open to being proven wrong or having my mind changed. I do not dismiss or downplay the importance of what they are saying. However, I tend to reduce tension and pivot to something productive relatively quickly once I recognize it is just an argument for the sake of arguing or releasing stress. I do not ignore or avoid when she has more to say. Rather, I multitask by engaging in the discussion while cleaning, packing leftovers, or setting up a relaxing environment for afterward. I prepare affirmations to use once she begins to calm down and follow that up with intimacy. To be clear, if it is a genuine argument, it receives my full attention. I ensure my points and rebuttals are clear so there is no uncertainty left unresolved. Otherwise, I consider which tasks I can complete to keep things moving forward while looking forward to intimacy. Story 75. I have put in a valiant effort in arguing, and as Chris Rock says, a woman won't let logic or sense ruin a perfectly good argument. That has been my experience as well. Logic and sense go right out the window. Now I just sit quietly for 3 days and waste 72 hours of my time until things get back to normal. This also does not make sense, but no matter what road you take to make things better, they all end up in the same place. Story 76. If I notice I am beginning to spiral out, I take a moment to gather my thoughts so I can get my point across clearly without saying something I will have to apologize for. I need to avoid feeling cornered. Story 77. I argue back, but unlike women, I do pull my punches. Also, unlike women, I am looking for a solution to the problem or a negotiated compromise. It never works. Women do not compromise, negotiate, or solve problems. Women fight to win. I have never met a woman who wanted to be in a relationship more than she wanted to win a fight. This is one of the many reasons why women are not worth dating anymore. None are willing to compromise. None care about anything but getting their way all the time. Other people are just utilities to women. They do not care about anything but themselves. Story 78. We do not really argue in the traditional sense. It is more like witty banter. Then it becomes who can make the wittiest statement, and whatever we are arguing about does not get resolved. I am trying to win the witty game. I do not care about the argument anymore. Story 79. I definitely argue back. I hate it when a partner shuts down because nothing can be accomplished. Usually, I try to be right about whatever is being argued, and if I am wrong, I admit it and apologize. Story 80. I try not to participate and just say, okay, or I do not want to talk about it right now. But after half an hour of constant complaining, I usually snap and shout back. Then there is about an hour of arguing followed by a day of silence. Story 81. He has temper tantrums. Let him have his tantrum, and then I continue with my day. I don't discuss with the child. Story 82. It depends on the topic. As a general rule, if she is acting like a child on the topic, she will receive a spanking and sit in a chair facing the corner for half an hour until she calms down. Story 83. You cannot argue with an emotional psychopath. What are you going to do? Use logic. It is best to just ride it out. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.